Greetings. In this video, what I'd like to do is cover Chapter 8 of Serial Murders and Their Victims, Team Killers. And here we get into an interesting area where we try to look at the dynamics between two or more individuals who come together and form a small group, or a dyad, or a triad. Usually there's only one other accomplice, so you have two actual people working together. But this is a very different scenario since now you have a different dynamic operating. If we look at the team killers and looking at the sample that your author has from 2004 to 2011, you can see that, first of all, that they account for around 20% of all the serial killers, which is a relatively large number. And that if we look at the gender of the killers, 76% are male and the rest female. As I mentioned before, the average number of accomplices is one. So we're talking about, the norm would be, in this case, two people working together and one accomplice. And we also take a look at the average age of the offender at first killings around 30. And the average span of the killing is around 3 years. And the number of victims per offender is somewhere around 2.5 to 3.1. And we also note that 40% use shooting as a method of killing. And of course, other techniques are used as well, such as strangling and beating and combinations. And we also note that when we look at victimology, that 53% were male and female victims, and so we get some different dynamics here operating in different demographics here. As I mentioned, most of the cases of team killers involve two offenders, although there have been a few cases where there's three or more in each of the groups. And one of the things we want to take a look at is what would be some of the motivating factors that would occur here. And especially relevant would be to look at the relationship, how the two or more people are related to each other in their interactions and in how they think and act and behave, and what roles they take. And of course, do you have a leader and a follower relationship going on as well? And that's usually what we see, is that one person kind of has the psychological grasp of the other person. One example that is provided in your textbook, which we're all familiar with, is the Charles Manson case. Usually you have males dominating in the situation where you have the male-female dyad, and it's relatively rare to see women dominating in the female-male dyad. There's a case presented in your book, though, that shows the rare case. And then also we begin to see that women, when they are associated with men and they engage in serial murder, they tend to be followers rather than leaders, although they can be extremely deadly. And you can also take a look at some of the cases and see how the group, or the two people or three killed, how they carried out their murders, how they were caught, what might be some of the motivating factors. And of course, there's not a one case fits all here. So one of the things, of course, in investigations is that we want to know, is this a one person engaging in the serial murders, or is it two or more? One of the areas that I've looked at in my own research, which gets into some of this area, is genocide. And in some of my cases, I have groups of of men who engaged in mass slaughter together as a group over a period of time. And of course, here we want to look at the whole idea of how does this relate to serial murder and team killing, and are there some similarities as well as differences? And I'm not going to get into that in this chapter, but certainly something to think about when we try to look at the dynamics, the whether or not mental disorders are present, and what types of leaders and followers engage with each other, and what kind of process evolves over time that leads up to the actual murders, and of course the aftermath or outcomes of the cases as well. And this wraps up this video.